We're now live.
Thank you. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Loughborough Area Committee for Charnwood Borough Council on the 16th of June 2021. Before we commence the meeting, there are a number of things I would like to remind people of before we start with the items on the agenda. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the Council's website following the meeting. Under the openness of local government bodies regulations, people may film or record this meeting, and this is outside the Council's control. However, people wishing to film or record the meeting should do so in a way that does not disrupt the business of the meeting. Also, so that the meeting is not disturbed, could I ask everyone present, please turn off your mobile phone or switch to silent and ensure that your environment is distraction-free. We've now been running a number of virtual meetings, so I'm not going through the rules of how we proceed with virtual meetings. So first of all, though, I would like each member to confirm verbally that they are present and that they can see and hear the proceedings. So first off, in roll call order, Councillor Bailey.
Good evening, I can see and hear the proceeding.
Councillor Baldwin. I do know that I'll come back to Councillor Baldwin because he was having some technical problems. Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Karen. I can see and hear.
Councillor Julie Bradshaw.
Yes, I can see and hear the proceedings. Thank you, Karen.
Councillor Brennan.
Hello, thank you. Yes, I can see and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Campsall.
Yes, I can hear and see the proceedings as well.
You're quite faint, Councillor Campsall. Councillor Draycott. You're muted.
Sorry. Good evening. Yes, I can see and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Forrest.
Good evening, Karen. Yes, I can both see and hear the proceedings. Thank you.
Councillor Goddard.
Thank you. I can see and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I can both see and hear proceedings.
Councillor Christine Harris.
I can see and hear. Sorry, it was I hadn't unmuted.
Councillor I can see and Harris, is he in attendance?
Yes. Put the video on yet. I can see and hear proceedings.
Lovely. Councillor Mercer.
I can see and hear proceedings.
Councillor Mear.
Thanks, Karen. I can see and hear the proceedings.
Councillor Parsons.
Yes, I can both see and hear proceedings.
Councillor Parton.
Good evening. All proceedings could be seen and heard.
Councillor Smidovitz.
Yes, I can see and hear, Karen. Thank you.
Councillor Tillotson.
Thank you. Yes, I can see and hear proceedings.
And Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, I can see and hear the proceedings.
And now Councillor Baldwin, I understand, can only hear proceedings, and so he's actually attempting to get logged back on again, but we'll continue and hopefully be able to join us from a different device. Thank you. And then in terms of officers, first of all, have we got Councillor Jenny Boker as the lead member here as well? No. Okay. Next, I've got officers. I've got Julie Robinson.
I can confirm I can see and hear, thanks.
Richard Bennett.
I can confirm that I can see and hear proceedings, thanks.
Matt Bradford.
Hello, I can see and hear proceedings, thank you.
Leslie Tansey.
Thank you. I can see and hear proceedings. Thank you.
And Sylvia Wright.
I can see and hear proceedings. Thank you.
And then there's myself, Democratic Services Manager, and Sally Watson, Democratic Services Officer, who's live streaming and taking the minutes. So the first item on the agenda is the appointment of chair. So I would like to receive a nominations, please, for the appointment of chair for 2021-22. Can somebody propose and second a chair, please?
Thank you, Karen. I'd like to propose Councillor Colin Hamilton for chair.
I would second that, Colin. I would second that, please, Karen.
Okay, thank you. So what I'll do, I'm looking, there's no raised hands there, so I'm going to now go through as quickly as possible. So for, against or abstention. So Councillor Bailey, are you for or against?
For.
Councillor Baldwin? Oh, he can only hear. So, okay, we're going to have to miss Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Bolton?
For.
Councillor Julie Bradshaw?
For, Karen.
Councillor Brennan?
Right, I'm back.
Councillor Baldwin, I'll go back to you. We've just had a nomination that Councillor Hamilton be appointed chair of the committee. Are you for, against or abstaining?
I'm for.
For. So back to the list, Councillor Brennan. I can't hear. Okay, I can't hear Councillor Brennan. Councillor Campbell, you've muted.
For. Can you hear me now?
Councillor Draycott.
For, Karen.
Councillor Forrest.
For, please.
Councillor Goddard.
For.
Councillor Hamilton.
I shall abstain.
Oh, you're abstaining, yeah. Councillor Christine Harris.
For.
Councillor Keith Harris.
For.
Councillor Mercer.
For.
Councillor Mia.
For.
Councillor Parsons.
For.
Councillor Parton.
For.
Councillor Smidovitz.
For.
Councillor Tillotson.
For.
For, obviously, and Councillor Ward.
For.
Councillor Brennan, I couldn't hear you before. Are you for, against, or abstaining? I think she's not in the room. I'm actually going to have to show that she's not voted on this occasion, and that's clearly carried that Councillor Hamilton is appointed chair for this year, this civic year, so congratulations. And now the next item on the agenda is the appointment of vice chair. If you don't mind, Chair, if I continue with the appointment process. So the appointment of vice chair, do we have a nomination, please?
Karen, can I nominate Councillor Jill Bolton, please?
Jill Bolton. And do you have a seconder for that?
I'll second that, Karen, if I may.
Lovely. And then the same process again. So Councillor Bailey, are you for or against? Councillor Baldwin?
For.
Councillor Bolton?
I'll abstain.
Councillor Julie Bradshaw?
For.
Councillor Brennan? Not here. Councillor Campbell?
For.
Councillor Draycott?
For.
Councillor Forrest?
For.
Councillor Goddard?
For.
Councillor Hamilton?
For.
Councillor Christine Harris?
For.
Councillor Keith Harris?
For.
Councillor Mercer?
For.
Councillor Mia?
For.
Councillor Parsons?
For.
Councillor Parton?
For.
Councillor Smidovitz?
For.
Councillor Tillotson?
For.
And finally, Councillor Ward. Is that
For.
or against? I can't hear. Oh.
Yes, it was, Karen.
For. Okay, and that's clearly carried. And so Councillor Bolton has been appointed as the Vice Chairman for the civic year 21-22. Congratulations. So I'm going to now pass to the Chairman, Councillor Hamilton, to take over for the next item on the agenda, which is the minutes. The apologies, actually, I will cover that. We've got one apology from Councillor Morgan. And I believe, has Councillor Brennan joined the meeting yet? She did before. No.
I think she's just joined it now.
Yes.
When I rejoined the meeting on
Right,
a
lovely.
different device, I was booted out by an unknown error. My apologies.
Lovely. So I pass over to the Chairman now. Item 4, the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay. Thanks for the votes, everyone. So moving on to item 4, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I ask if there's any comments, beginning of factual accuracy about the minutes anyone wishes to raise? I'm not seeing any hands up. Is there any items arising that's not dealt with later on in this agenda? I'm not seeing any hands up. So can I ask if that this panel approves the minutes of the last meeting? Now, how do we do this, Karen? Do we do this again by going round individually or show of hands? Oh, wait a minute, Councillor Parton, you've got a comment.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, in the previous meeting, I'd asked there were some under resolved at point 4. It talks about investigate report the Loughborough Committee on financing of additional bush shelters. I'd also made the point I wanted more information, please, on the and I'd recommended that the expenditure on the Christmas lights have been reduced and some more information on that. It's not in the minutes.
Okay, what we can do, Councillor Parton, we can follow that up. So you want the additional information regarding bus shelters and Christmas lights, what's happened with the funding. Okay, we can follow that and we can attach it in as an appendix to the minutes if you wish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then what we'll do, as instead of doing a roll call of everybody, unless you've got any objections, I can't see any raised hands, so we'll take it that those minutes are approved. Thank you. So you can move on to the next item now, which is item 5.
Okay, thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary and personal interests? I'm seeing no indication to that effect. Okay, so I can move on to item 6, which is questions under committee procedure 12.8. No questions were submitted, so we can move straight on to the substantive item for this evening, which is the Loughborough Annual Update Report. There's a series of... Okay. Sorry,
yeah, I was about to say this report, I'll introduce, so this report is the annual report. It's not actually been received. We didn't have one last year, so it's 2 years since. The report members will have read already, so I wasn't proposing that each head of service goes through in great detail their report. So unless I hear otherwise or someone wishes to, any of the heads of service. And so it's now over to questions from members about the detail in the report. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions in this report? Okay, Councillor Draycott.
Yes, thank you, Chair. A couple of matters. First of all, on the Loughborough Town Centre master plan, pleased to see reference to public realm improvements on Nottingham Road. I'd just like some more information if that could be done outside of the meeting by an email by the officers concerned. And then the second point is to welcome the money from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner for the People Zone for the next 2 years. That will strengthen a lot of the structure that's in place at the moment, and the delivery plan at the moment is being worked up. So that is very good news, but hopefully it won't take too long before the results will be shown. So just a comment on the People Zone, but if I could have more information about Nottingham Road, that would be helpful, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any reply to that from one of the officers? Is that Richard Bennett?
Thank you, Chair. If I may just respond to Councillor Draycott's request. Can you all hear me? Sometimes my microphone is a little quiet, but the Nottingham Road public realm scheme is about how we can better connect the railway station through to the town centre and then on to the university. And it's a scheme that is is being taken forward through the Loughborough Town deal, subject to all the checks and balances and terms and conditions that the government imposes on the town deal. Nevertheless, the council does have some funding available to do some feasibility work to look at the feasibility of bringing forward a scheme and an indicative design for the Nottingham Road scheme. So I hope that helps you to understand what that's about. More information will be forthcoming in due course. There isn't anything more tangible than that at the moment.
No, that's very helpful, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Parton.
I've got several questions. The first set of questions relate to the people zone. There seems to be reference to close multi-agency meetings, and the words used are met regularly since January 2019, and that's on page 14.18. Then on page 16.28 states that meetings will be resumed. So I don't quite understand the difference between there were meetings and there are meetings, but then meetings have now got to be resumed. The second question is, what was the reason that in January 2019 that metrics and KPIs weren't instigated then? Because page 15.22 refers to Loughborough University organising metrics. What's the reason it's only happened now? And it says that there's quarterly reporting. It's on page 16, the top paragraph, quarterly reporting. But then on page 16.26 seems to contradict that. So they are the questions regarding the people zone. Thank you.
Do you have a response on that from anyone?
Councillor Hamilton, it's Julie Robinson here. I can't find my hand.
All right.
I thought it was just better that I said something and made a noise. Thank you for that. In terms of your questions, Councillor Parton, obviously the people zone's been ongoing for quite a while. It has kind of ebbed and flowed, and as identified in the report, COVID has impacted on its ability to deliver. The meetings did transfer over to online meetings. And I think what we're talking about is that obviously because of that impact in COVID, what we've been able to achieve during that period has kind of been quite limited. And what we're talking about in terms of with the OPCC's announcement in relation to the funding, it's about reinvigorating those meetings. And I know that there's been a meeting today that both Councillor Draycott and Councillor Hamilton have both been involved in terms of to reinvigorate that multi-agency and stakeholder meeting, where we recognise that there were some partners missing previously, and it was a kind of a re-engaging with those partners. And I think Councillor Draycott and Hamilton will probably support me in terms of, I understand from the meeting today, there were health colleagues in the room, which was really good to see. We need to get that delivery plan on track, and there's no budget ever been allocated previously for people zones, which is Councillor Draycott said is a real positive. In relation to the metrics, that is being led on by the OPCC's office, and that has been delayed and been on stall during COVID. There were some initial baseline done right back at the start of the project, but that hasn't been revisited recently, and we've been waiting for the OPCC to finalise their discussions with Loughborough University.
The other question is what is meant by community resilience?
So it's about a community development approach. So making sure we're delivering what the community want and upskilling people in the community to be able to take a lead in certain aspects of the delivery plan so that activities can be sustainable going forward, and upskilling the community to be able to have a voice and lead on that.
What sort of skills are you looking to develop?
At the minute, there's nothing definitive. The delivery plan's in its really early stages, and we're meeting with multi-agency and waiting for feedback on the community. But there'll be a whole range of things that we'll be looking to do going forward and getting different people involved.
And Chair, the next questions we are to do with the. Have we moved on to the budget? Looking at the budget yet, Chair? These budgetary figures that we've been given.
Well, this is questions on the whole report, so I suppose it can be questions on anywhere in the report. With my interpretation. So yes, if you can ask questions on anything.
Right. Okay. The could we have some more information on the Thorpe Community Hub, which has a £6,500 underspent and talks about that it's not taking place? Could we have some clarification on that, please?
Through you, Chair, it's Julie again. Still not found my hand. Sorry, I should need to look. In terms of that, yes, a decision has been concluded through discussions with the group that Thorpe Community Hub is not going to progress going forward for a variety of reasons. All of the local councillors have been involved and informed. And there's a whole raft of reasons in relation to the lease, the governance, increased costs, and the organisation's capacity, and COVID again kind of stalled the project and ability to take it forward. So a decision's been made that that's not going ahead.
And the final question for now, Chair, is I'm looking at the back page. So we're looking at page 20, and you will observe that there are continual references to support services. Do we mean by support services officer time? Because I did some calculations. The underspend of support services was 14.3 thousand. The overspend was 23.4 thousand, which meant that there was the figure that we arrive at was an overspend of 9.1 thousand. And there is something, to give an example, in the town centre where it says that on point 19, support service recharges were overspent £6.7 thousand. This was mainly due to more money being spent by the head of leisure and culture and market and fairs teams, ensuring COVID restrictions were adhered to during this period. But then you go to another part of here where it talks about do apologise, I found it. Number 20, support services were also underspent. This was mainly due to less time being spent in this area by the markets and fairs team. I would have thought the market team is the team that would have been ensuring COVID restrictions. So we've got an overspend in markets and fairs team, then we've got an underspend.
Any response?
Through your chair, Sylvia Wright. Sorry, I've not found the hand either. Not doing very well tonight. The overspends and underspends on support services, they basically relate to what they've been in previous years. And in terms of the first one you mentioned, under 19, basically a lot of the prep work that we do for the fair affects the Christmas light budget, because it's removal of furniture, the big, what I call the purple poles, and also there's a lot of work that was done that obviously the events in that area didn't take place. So there are always anomalies in terms of we can't predict always how much time officers will be spending. and it's very reactive in terms of how we, although we've got an area of time, it is quite reactive, and it's where it's coded to. There might have been more, it might not have been coded quite correctly, because as you say, you'd expect more officer time in the markets, and there was a great deal of work in terms of making sure the market was COVID compliant. A lot of research had to go ahead, and also purchasing of new equipment and all the risk assessments, etc. So, and that had to be supported with officer time rather than the actual operatives that were delivering that work. So it is kind of dependent where the work takes place, and it is quite a reactive sum. Hope that helps.
Is that okay, Councillor Barton? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one more, but I'm aware I'm taking too much time. So if there's time later on in the meeting, I'll ask it later.
Okay, thank you. Personally, I might just want to make a quick remark in addition to what Julie Robinson said, because I was at a meeting of the People's Zone today, and I was actually very impressed by the sheer number of different bodies that were attended that meeting. It's a very wide range of people, and as was mentioned, there will be monies. I think Councillor Draycott mentioned earlier, there's monies going to be released for that. Is it 25k this year and next year? It does require a delivery plan, so as a draft delivery plan has already been created, but it is an organic document. There's going to be an aspect that's going to be bottom up. So part of it will be kind of finding, we'll let the residents themselves will identify some of their needs, and then that can be kind of incorporated. So it looks like it feels very reinvigorated moving forward. So I'm quite kind of optimistic about the People's Zone initiative moving forward. Councillor Parsons.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair. I have 3 questions, all on page 12. The first is on point 7, second sentence. Can somebody just inform me what the scale of the grant was to Charnwood Campus Limited? Can I understand whose money it was that grant came from? In other words, was it Charnwood money, LEP money, government money, and where that decision was made, please? That's my first point.
Any response?
Yes, through you, Councillor Hamilton. I haven't got that specific information in front of me, I'm afraid. So may I submit a written response to the councillor's questions after this meeting?
Sounds reasonable. Are you okay with that, Councillor Parsons?
Yeah. In the absence of the information being available, that's as good as. Thank you. Second question in a similar vein on point 9. The 313 in accrued business rates allocated to the Growth Accelerator programme. Once again, is that our money? Is that Charnwood's portion of the business rates? Is that LEP portion of the business rates? And is it business rate money specifically from the enterprise zone, or is it from the general community of business rate payers that we have taken 313,000 and put it into that programme?
Through you, Councillor Hamilton, my understanding is it's the business rates from the enterprise zone rather than the wider collective of business rates. But again, I can provide some further detail on that after the meeting, unless Leslie, I think, has got her hand up, wants to comment further.
Thank you, Richard. Just to comment on that, it is actually the enterprise zone business rates LEP money that would have been passed over to the LEP. However, we retained that 313,000 ourselves as a council, and we've created an account and earmarked that 313. It's actually sitting in our year-end accounts, ready to pay out on that at a given point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no follow-up questions. I'll move on to Councillor Smidovic.
Thank you, Chair. On page 12 still, it's to do with the town deal. I was just curious because the plan, it says the plan proposed was 25 million should be invested in Loughborough. But I think in the end we only got 17 million. I say only, it's good to get that. But I just wondered, with the difference, some 8 million, what exactly were the things, if you could be precise, or the major things that perhaps were planned or envisaged that we're now not going to get?
Through you, Councillor Hamilton, as chair. So the town deal investment plan that was submitted had schemes in it totaling £25 million, which was the maximum that we could bid for through the process. We did know that some of the schemes that were in that bidding document were perhaps less well developed than others. The government has set out an offer of £16.9 million, subject to terms and conditions and further work. And but that figure doesn't necessarily correlate to the schemes as was originally submitted. So the government has made an amount of money available for us to deliver the schemes in the investment plan. However, they have said that one of the schemes they would not want us to take forward, and that's the Generation Loughborough scheme. So the promoters of that scheme have been advised. So the balance of the schemes in the investment plan will need to be prioritised by the Town Deal Board to see how that £16.9 million is allocated, subject to the T's and C's, etc. So that's the answer.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
I was just going to go on to say, Councillor Smidovic, Councillor Hamilton, that in the section on the town deal in the report, it does say that I'll provide a verbal update on the town deal once more information is known towards the back end of May. We have had that information now, and I'm very happy to assist the committee with the government announcement and what happens next if the committee would welcome that.
Right. Thank you, Richard.
Right, thank you. Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Chair. It'd be helpful to have an update of where we are with arrangements for this year's fair, if that's possible, please.
Sylvie Wright, through the chair. Just to let you know that we are actually starting the planning process for the fair. It's later than we usually do, but obviously we were waiting for the announcement, June announcement on the roadmap and what would be happening. But due to the timescale, we've actually started the planning process because we can't actually leave it any later. So we are now planning at risk and making preparations for the delivery of the fair this year. Obviously, we will need to be guided by government guidance, but preparations have begun.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that. Can I ask a question similar? Because of this is the special anniversary of the fair, are we able to salvage as much as possible? Is that, you know, is there things that we're able to do that because it is a special anniversary, or is it something that just can't happen now?
Yes, Chair. We are hoping, obviously, to make the fair as full and as vibrant as it usually is. We are also having contingency plans because of the Bedford Square Gateway project, and so we're actually working contingency plans for whether, you know, if we have to interrupt the flow of the fair or we can't site some of the vehicles in the same place. So there is a lot of work going on behind the scenes because we know how important the fair is on its 800th anniversary. So I think what I can safely say, some delivery of the fair will happen definitely, but it's just until we don't know which version until we're further along with government guidance, if that helps.
Yeah, is that also applying to any other special 800th anniversary events that I don't know about, you know, that might have been planned and they were shelved and are maybe taken off the shelf again?
What we've been doing is obviously planning events for the market and the fair, and we've kept it fairly low key and announced things as they're happening. But there are exhibitions. There's an exhibition at the Town Hall Gallery in October that will celebrate the fair. And we've been working with local showmen and the National Archive of showmen as well to bring images and things that are relevant to Loughborough for the public to see. So there will be an exhibition which will complement the fair, and we will be having a plaque unveiled in the marketplace to celebrate the market and the fair charter as well. We have an exhibition at the museum for the market element of it, and there are different events that will be announced as and when we can, knowing whether or not they can take place or not. So it is a little bit of there's a lot of work going on, but we've not announced as much as we would have liked because of the COVID restrictions.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thank you. Councillor Draycott.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was going to also ask a couple of questions on the Loughborough special expenses. First of all, that's quite a hit on the Loughborough Fair, which was to be expected. So I fully appreciate that. My question is, can that be mitigated for this year, November, in the likelihood that we'll be in the same situation? Because it has eaten up all of the underspends considerably. The second point goes back to a question that Councillor Parton asked to do with Thorpe Acre and the 6,500. This was raised extensively at the last meeting about how this money had been sitting in this budget for a number of years, and the argument was that it should have been used to mitigate the effect of closure of the Biggin Street toilets, which was hardly mentioned in the council budget paper or acknowledged. So finally it's been removed, but it's actually been sitting there when it could have been perhaps put to other use by this committee. So as it has been removed, Chair, where is that £6,500 now going? I would like to ask. Thank you. Just those two things.
Thank you. Any response?
Councillor Draycott, I can just answer that very last question about where is the 6,500 going. If you can see in the report, the figures do get netted down between all the over and underspends. So in terms of where is it going, there's only a favourable balance of 2,000 on the accounts, because you've got some you've got the overspend on the fair and you've got quite a few considerable underspends. I don't think we've actually requested that amount being carried forward within our outturn report, which will be the 1st of July's outturn report. I don't think that's actually been a request.
So it's been used to
it's used to net down all those other overspends.
Yeah, like all the other overspends.
Unfortunately, we are in a favourable 2K position. I think due to events not happening throughout the year, we've actually balanced off that rate based on the original budget. But if Sylvia's got any other things to add about the toilets, I can pass you on to Sylvia. I don't know any more about the toilets.
Okay, so just if we keep on to the fair then, so what's the chances of not making such a huge loss in November this year? Is there any things we are doing or could be doing to prevent it happening again? Because it's an awful lot of taxpayers' money.
If I may, through the chair, obviously the loss was because we couldn't hold the fair, and the fair normally generates around £94,000 income each year to the council. Obviously, there's costs associated with that. What we're doing is not committing expenditure in advance, so we're delaying any contracts or anything that we need to do to make sure we mitigate against any loss. We're working to the budget currently of holding the fair, but obviously it's impossible to guarantee whether we can actually run it exactly as we would normally run it. If we are able to run it, and if we're not interrupting the fair too much because of the roadworks and the public realm works, then we expect to bring the same level of income in. But as I say, we've been holding off kind of any expenditure relating to it as much as possible, to help mitigate further loss.
Okay, so that leaves the toilets or Paker issue, please, yeah.
Okay, no follow-up question. Okay, I'll go to Councillor Brennan.
Sorry, Chair, there's still the Thorpe Acre.
All right, sorry.
Thorpe Acre question and the toilets. But I'll accept what's been said. I'm just making the point that money sat in this budget for at least 3 years, wasn't spent and couldn't have been used to have mitigated the closure of the toilet. So I'd just like that put on record, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a couple of quick questions about the Bedford Square Gateway project relating to paragraphs 13 and 15 in the report. It's mentioned at the start of paragraph 15 that there's been a number of unexpected issues. I wonder if you could just give us an update on that, if that's okay, on what those issues were, and what's happened since, and what is envisaged to be the overall impact on the timescale for this project of those issues and of the disruption from Severn Trent mentioned in paragraph 13, please, if that's okay. Also, just to note that I very much welcome the 1 hour parking in the Beehive, which I think has probably been very helpful to local businesses. It's certainly made it manageable to park for a short time while there's been disruption. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Brennan, and through you, Chair. Before there was actually a spade put in the ground, there was quite a lot of site exploratory investigations by the contractor to understand the ground conditions and the stuff that was underneath the paving along the Devonshire Square, Devonshire Lane, Wards End and Bedford Square car park areas. However, when they started excavating down Devonshire Lane and the area in front of the Home Bargains, the Devonshire Square area, they found a number of issues, not least that there was a web of utilities there that were mapped on established utilities maps, and which required the utility companies to come in and relocate or give the nod that works could continue over the top of them at the depth that it was intended to, the finished surface level was intended to be. So that caused a delay to the programme over Easter, that particular one, of 2 weeks whilst drawings were re-prepared to mitigate that particular issue. On the Devonshire Lane area, we discovered that there was an issue with the drains that had to be redesigned. And again, that during the same period of time, those drains had to be redesigned and signed off by the County Highway Authority. I think the main issue for the project that we found was that when Severn Trent did their works on Ward's End, which was to relay the water main and reposition it in the carriageway, we discovered that the carriageway was actually well, I was going to say it wasn't to the the normal standards that we accept today for highway construction, because it's a historic route, and it's essentially for the sake of argument, it's almost like tarmac on top of earth. Okay, so it doesn't have a proper subbase to it, and that's just because it's a very old road, and it's, you know, it was never constructed you know, hundreds of years ago to the standards that we expect today. So because of that, we've had to redesign the scheme so that rather than what we would have to do, which is to scrape out all of the subbase and the tarmac and the subbase underneath it and reconstitute that road from scratch, which would have caused an awful lot of disruption to traders and prolong the project beyond Christmas. We've had to redesign the Ward's End part of the scheme, which includes putting in a different design to the pavements on the eastern side of the road, with gullies down the centre, and canting the road rather than it being a crown, sort of a domed finish. It cants down towards the west side of the road with new drains on that side, and that means that all we need to do is to scrape off about 40 millimeters of tarmac and relay the tarmac on the top. So that's taken quite a bit of time to redesign because of the amount of drainage work, and also to work with the county council to get technical approval for that as a solution. So there will be a consequential knock-on impact on the programme because of that. We haven't had the final phasing plan and project plan to show what those dates now look like, but inevitably it means that the scheme's going to extend beyond the Loughborough Fair. So this is why when Sylvia's been talking about contingency planning for the fair, that's the relationship. So because of these works, the scheme goes beyond the fair, and so we need to put in place the contingency plan to ensure that traders can be accommodated. You know, the showmen can be accommodated during the fair in an alternative way. You will have noticed, of course, that you know, the contractors haven't downed tools. What they have been able to do is to go off and reprofile their programme and start work at Bedford Square North Car Park now, which would have otherwise been left till later in the programme. So they brought that forward so that they're not standing down workers and plant, and so they can keep the scheme going. So that's been good, but obviously you know, we've had to work very closely with the traders to make them aware of what's going on and to ensure that you know, they understand the reasons why we've had to move things around. And you know, we've provided a number of sort of face-to-face meetings with the contractor and our project manager, the council's project manager, to, you know, to talk about their problems and concerns, and also we've held a Zoom meeting with more Zoom meetings to be held, you know, as we go forward and we get clarity on the programme going forward. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Chair. I just assume that you will update us again regarding the Bedford Square project at the next meeting of the Loughborough Area Committee.
Chair, very happy to do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I have a comment and then I have a question, please. The comment is, Councillor Brennan doesn't know I'm about to say this, but on behalf of myself and Councillor Brennan and the residents of Shelthorpe, we'd like to say thank you to Matt and the Open Spaces team for the installation earlier this year of the mugger on Farnham Road. And I have to say that it has made a huge difference to residents. it's always being used by the older kids. And I think most importantly, what it means is that the play park on Farnham Road that was meant for the younger children is now available for the younger children to use, because the older children have got somewhere to go and spend their time and be together. So thank you very much, Matt, and your team for that. My question is on page 20, point 9. Just a little bit concerned that we only got back 700 quid out of an insurance claim of 10,500 to rebuild the boundary wall on New Street. And what occurs to me to ask is whether this has any implications for other insurance policies that we have as a council. And I don't know who's best placed to answer that. Thank you.
A response to that?
I'll come back on that one, Chair, if I may, although the answer might not be as full as I'd like to give. Just like to say thanks for the compliments for the team for installing the mugger, and I'll pass those on to staff involved tomorrow. Regarding the insurance claim, I'm not quite sure, if I'm honest, Councillor Bolton, so I'll take an action to go to the council's insurance officer this week and email the committee to get an answer on that. I did have a look at that myself, and it did seem that there was a disparity between the size, the extent of the damage and insurance money that we received for that. So I'll endeavour to come back with a response on that one for you.
That's great. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Chair. Returning to the Thorpe Acre Hub and the money that was left over in the budget, we agreed that a consultation was going to take place after we presented a list of projects that could be funded from the money that was left. I wondered where we were at with the consultation, when it's likely to take place, and when we're likely to know the results.
Any response?
Asked Karen if we've got anything, an action point on that, Karen, to follow up.
Chair, I understood when I referred to that item that the £6,500 has been used towards the loss for the fair. So I got the impression that that money no longer exists. So Councillor Baldwin might want to comment further on the matter.
Well, it's somewhat disappointing, Councillor Draycott, that we were led to believe that some money existed and that it was going to be used on projects that we presented a list for. But if it's all gone, it's all gone, I guess.
Okay. I have actually missed the point there. I was asked for a query, but I'm afraid I was distracted slightly, so I do apologise.
Is there any action you want Councillor Baldwin to be looked into, or?
As the money's gone, no, I don't think so. It's just that perhaps the planning on this could have been better.
If we note, in the minutes, we can note your, the disappointment. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Parton.
The question about the wall that was hit by the lorry has been asked by Councillor Bolton, so you've got that one in. The Bedford Square Gateway project. Now, the South car park, whilst originally designed, and if you go onto the internet and view the video of the whole project, the pan shot starts with the Bedford Square South car park. But actually, at the beginning of the works, that had been taken out due to lack of funding. However, if the town deal bid was successful, it was anticipated that that would then be incorporated, and that as soon as the North Devonshire Square and Ward's End had been completed, Fitzgerald wouldn't leave the site and would then continue and do the same on the South Car Park. Now that the funding has been received from the town deal, what assurances have we got that that will now continue and the project will be fully completed?
Richard Bennett, Head of Planning, through you, Chair. So just to be clear, the government has offered the Town Deal Board the funding. It is subject to criteria, terms and conditions, and a business case. So we don't have the money yet. So we have the money in principle. So for the Bedford Square scheme, the government has said that up to £1.7 million of the 16.9 million is available to be spent on that scheme. Now, the Town Deal Board may decide that they want to apportion less money than that to the Bedford Square scheme. That's entirely within the gift of the Town Deal Board. But assuming that they do allow the full entitlement to the Bedford Square scheme, then we would expect Fitzgerald, the contractors, to remain on site and to deliver the full scheme as part of this programme. So obviously there's some work to do to get the approval of this funding through the board, and to get the money passed across from government to enable that to happen within the existing programme as it stands. And that's what we're seeking to do.
Well, that sounds really encouraging. Thank you. This might be a question for you, Richard, again. Could you expand, provide details on point 9 on page 12, please? The restocking the business base, and it talks about equipped, talented people and emerging graduates disadvantaged by the economic fallout from the global pandemic. So are we saying that Loughborough University are delivering this programme? Is this something that is capturing Loughborough University finalists only?
Through you, Chair, this is a scheme which was conceived by the university to try and feed into the business space, into the marketplace, talented graduates who are emerging out from university, perhaps with research and ideas that they want to translate into business opportunities that are hitherto not being able to do so because of restrictions on the marketplace exerted by the pandemic or for whatever reason. So this is a sort of a leg up scheme, if you like, administered by the university and supported through the business rate scheme, as Leslie mentioned earlier on. So it's an opportunity for those graduates to get support to develop their business ideas that would otherwise not happen through lack of seed funding.
Okay. I've perhaps got a follow-up question based because following what Councillor Parton has mentioned, and also Councillor Smidrich earlier on, talking about the Loughborough Town deal and the 16.9 million given. Now, the question was asked earlier when we got the money, or when we said what the award was likely to be, they didn't give a prescriptive list as to what it should be spent on. But what you've said, there seems to be some indications of what they favoured and didn't favour. There seems almost like kind of this direction associated with that money. Is that a kind of a public domain document to see how they're minded? Because they clearly didn't say you must spend on this thing, but they clearly gave an indication of the kinds of things that they didn't think were suitable or they did think were suitable.
So government have issued heads of terms for the Town Deal Board to consider, and those heads of terms set out the requirements that the Town Deal Board must accept in order to get access to the funding. But as part of the heads of terms, there's an appendix that lists the projects that the government is prepared to support, taken from the original town deal investment plan that was submitted in February. So as I mentioned earlier on, not all of the schemes have been included in that list, and that's presumably because the government felt they didn't provide a suitable return on investment. So I mentioned one, the Generation Loughborough scheme, which was promoted by the Youth Services Trust. It will be now a matter for the Town Deal Board to consider how it's going to prioritise the schemes that are in the shortlist against the funding that has been made available in principle, and to submit that to government within 2 months of signing the heads of terms. So by the end of where are we now? So by the end of August, we will have submitted our the Town Deal Board will have submitted its priority list of projects, and then it has a further 12 months to set out the business case for those schemes. And again, the government is looking to see that following a Green Book business case process, that the schemes are going to deliver on the outputs and outcomes and provide value for money for the investment that the government is making. So part of that will be considering the level of match funding and as I said, the outcomes in the community and for the wider populace of Loughborough. So these are the sorts of things the government will be looking at. So is it in the public domain? We've publicised the announcement of the Town Deal offer. I don't think we've publicised the prioritised list, although the Town Deal Board is privy to it. I am sure that there will be further communications as we head off down the road of fulfilling the government's expectations on this project. So as I mentioned, we have to sign the heads of terms by the 29th of June. So we've got about a week and a half, 2 weeks to sort that out. And I imagine at that point it will be all very clear to the wider public as to what's happening and how we move forward in the timescales, etc., etc.
So is there therefore other possible hurdles? In other words, is there a risk that we might not get all of that money if they're not satisfied with business cases for some aspects of some projects?
That's correct, Councillor Hamilton. And we've got to remember that this is not a borough council project. It's a project for the Town Deal Board.
Yeah.
And the projects that have been put forward are largely from stakeholders and partners that the council has. I mean, of course, the council does have its own projects in there, such as the Bedford Square scheme and the Parish Green scheme and the Connected Loughborough scheme and the Lanes scheme. But the other schemes are all led by stakeholders or partners. You know, we've got the flood alleviation scheme in there, which is led by the Environment Agency, and schemes that are led by the university and the college, for example. So and the success of those projects will depend very much on the ability of those partners to provide the information that government is looking for in the right format, to tick the right boxes to open the government's purse strings.
Okay, thanks for that. Thank you.
Colin, I had a follow-up question to that, if you would entertain it.
Mm-hmm.
Richard, staying on the Town Deal, if you don't mind, how, as we as councillors, Loughborough councillors, can we keep abreast of developments? Because all that you've said today is quite new, and I was expecting an update because that was in the report. But how will we be kept abreast of developments? But also which projects actually go forward in the end and fall away? Are we going to reconstitute this group that we had before, or are you not sure?
So it's a good question, Councillor Mayor, thank you. And through you, Councillor Hamilton. So of course we have a governance structure in place at the moment with the Town Deal Board at the top of that. Feeding into it, of course, we have the member reference group, which is chaired by Councillor Boker, and also the community engagement group as well, which also feeds into the Town Deal Board. So those structures will remain in place, and there will be reports through those structures as we go forward to meet the various milestones of this project going forward. So So I think you can expect to, as ward councillors in Loughborough, you know, the representation that we've got on those groups will continue. So, you know, you'll be able to input in that way. There will be a communications plan developed to ensure that, you know, as appropriate and as we go forward, that messages will be released to councillors and stakeholders and the wider public as we go forward. But I have to say that with the announcement only happening, was it last week or very recently, and with trying to get on top of what the government criteria are and how it pans out from this point onwards, we haven't yet finalised the communications plan and the various different things that need to be done. I think, in fact, the project team met yesterday for the first time to take it forward. So we're right on the starting grid for this as we go forward, and I'm sure you'll be sick to death of it within a couple of months with all the information that will come out.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And it's a shame that Councillor Boker isn't here this evening. It would have been interesting to hear from her because she did chair that member reference group, and it was very interesting, that member reference group. Chair, I had one other question regarding the Loughborough Cemetery. Actually, I had another one about the Outwards Cafe, but the Loughborough Cemetery one. How are we on that one? Are we on track to open that soon? Because I know it's going for planning, and then we know the sports centre played up a bit, and we've had to engage with them and make sure that they were all okay. But how's the new development in the Outwards going for the cemetery?
Thank you, Chair. I'll take that one if I can, Councillor Meir. Yeah, we're all on track to have the cemetery completed in this financial year. I was hoping to get it done by Christmas, but it looks like we're going to January now. We are in the process of finalising the contracts with the contractor. There are some planning issues to be resolved on the amendments that we've made to the plans for the multi-use games area that are going through at the moment, and I expect to have contracts on within the next few weeks and be on site pretty quickly, really, to get that delivered. So I attended a stakeholder meeting down there with the clubs and local residents, introduced them to the project manager for the construction, so that they've got some direct dialogue and there doesn't seem to be any issues from their point of view. So yeah, we're hoping to make a start pretty soon, really.
Well, that's good to hear. I don't know who's is it, Matt? Is it yourself with Outwards Cafe? Do we have a tenant at the cafe?
Do we have a tenant?
Because we see the pictures and we tweeted the pictures and it looks really good.
Yeah.
But are we going to have somebody to run it once it's up and running?
The tender to get an operator closes this week, I believe, end of this week. So we've been out to tender. There's been lots and lots of interest in it. I'm really confident that we'll get a good quality tenant there. I'm hoping that they'll be in and operating by the end of the school holidays. But there is some internal fit out for the successful operator to do, so that they'll have to install their own kitchen equipment to suit their business, really. So it depends on their fit out timescale, but really hopeful that we could get some of that school holiday footfall for anyone opening a new business there. But that's been a really good project, and it's looking great at the moment.
Colin, I had one further question for Richard, if you wouldn't mind taking this. And that's this Bedford Square project on the road surface, or however many hundreds of years. But isn't the county council, and I think Ted and myself will declare an interest as twin hatters, but isn't the county council responsible for the road? And if it's substandard, I think that's the word that you were trying to shy away from. If it's substandard, they should be resolving it and sourcing it for us.
I think we just need, through you, Chair, I think we just need to think about this in the context of, you know, the evolution of our road network in the country. You know, it's substandard by today's standards. The county council is responsible for maintaining roads, and it's been maintaining the road successfully. You know, there aren't any defects in the road. The problem is that, of course, we want to have a scheme that is capable of supporting fairground rides and you know, that kind of level of weight and traffic going forward. And if our responsibility is to ensure that we bring forward a scheme that doesn't cause any worsenment to the road, but if we have to dig down to get the levels that we need to do the scheme, then we are then obliged to do it to the new standards, which would you know, would seem unfair, but that's how it works. So we have been able to retain the level of the road and redesign the pavements instead to avoid that situation from happening. And you know, and also to minimise the disruption to the traders in Ward's End. So it's you know, substandard, yes, but by today's standards, you know, but otherwise a perfectly acceptable piece of road as it stands at the moment. If you see what I mean.
No, thank you. Thank you. I think we'll have to fight your corner at County Hall for that one. Councillor Hampton, thank you very much for entertaining this question. Thank you.
Chair.
Sorry, Colin, I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Councillor Smidovic.
Just an aside, really, for Richard. I don't know if Dave Wolsey is still working at the council or whether he's retired now. But after 7 years of fighting Severn Trent and an insurance company, a chance conversation with Dave revealed a whole beautiful map of all the drains that were around on that property in 1920 that Severn Trent didn't have. So we were able to supply the information after 7 years. It only cost me £25,000 from a charity to be able to repair all the damage that had been done, which could have been repaired 7 years earlier if Severn Trent had had good plans. So if he's still there or his paperwork for the borough is in a drawer somewhere, it's well worth retaining for the archives. Just an observation.
If I could come in there, Chair, and just say that they've actually left the council this week, Councillor Smidovic, but we still have all of those plans in the plan drawer. So that we'll be keeping those for our future records.
Excellent news. Okay, Councillor Bradshaw.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. It's just going back to a couple of things that have been said tonight, in particular the bus shelters, which was one of the topics that I brought up at the last meeting. So far, obviously, there's been no response, and obviously would welcome some information further, like Councillor Parton said, on those. Obviously, on my ward, on Ashby Ward, I know the residents, this is why I was actually looking into it, the residents have been asking in particular because they've been standing out in all kinds of weather, as I'm sure other residents have been on other wards, and with the monies, with the small amount of money, I'm a little bit confused, to be honest, because I've been listening to what's been said tonight and have been involved with some of the things that Councillor Baldwin said about the projects, about the money, the overspend with Thorpe Acre. Now, can you just clarify, I may have misheard or anything, are you saying that money has completely gone on the spends with the fair? And where did I hear about the 2K still being available? And I obviously with the projects that Councillor Baldwin has said, because I've been involved with that with Councillor Campson as well, we were led to believe that there was still money there as well. And the bus shelters was one of them. So could you clarify? Could you also put on record as well on the minutes, obviously the frustration and annoyance at this, please? Thank you.
response to that?
Like me to answer that, Councillor Bradshaw, in terms of the 2K is an underspend for this year. That will actually go into the Loughborough Special. We have a reserve which will then be adjusted when we set the Loughborough Special rate. So any money that is retained will actually help us keep the rate at a level, at a reasonably low level that it's at the moment. In terms of the bush shelters, I think we could follow that one up. I think that's something that will perhaps be followed up in terms of, I don't know whether Matt's got any comment on that at all. Matt Bradford.
Yes, I can come in there. Thanks, Leslie, if you like, Chair, and explain a little bit about bush shelters. And I've been in correspondence, I think, with some of you over the past 12 months. We did install quite a lot of bush shelters in the borough some time ago, and this was down to an agency agreement that we had with the county council that made us responsible for some of the highways infrastructure. So a lot of the green barrel-topped bush shelters were installed around that time. That highways agreement ended, and the county took on those responsibilities again as a highways authority for transport infrastructure in there, and we have been in correspondence with the county council about bush shelter provision, in particular with new bush shelters installations. And I've got an email in front of me, I was just looking for it actually. So they state that in terms of new bush shelter installations, the county council will consider requests for new or replacement shelters, which will be assessed on a case-by-case basis, taking into account factors like location, frequency, usage levels. So it's our view as a borough council, if you like, that it is a county council function to provide any new bush shelters. Obviously, on new estates, one would hope that this is considered as part of a 106 agreement and could be developer funded, but obviously that may have been missed on some developments in the past. But I would suggest that it's taken up with the county council safe and sustainable travel team, are the people that we need to talk to about new bush shelter provision.
Thank you, Matt. But when I've been in touch with yourselves and other people, the county council have come back and said it's not their responsibility. So I've been going around in circles, as you probably heard. So
yeah, I've got an email from them, Councillor Bradshaw, that says that it is their responsibility. Obviously, they've got limited capacity, the same as us, really, to put new bush shelters in, but that they have accepted in an email to Rob Mitchell that I've been copied into that they are responsible for new bush shelters as part of their transport money.
And what about obviously Sylvia's just confirmed about that 2K plus, it's going to be spent in the special rate. Just a question, just reading my notes here. I'll come back to you on that one. I've forgotten just exactly what I was going to say onto that one, but it was to do with the 2K. I'll come back on that one and let others speak in the meantime.
Right, thank you. I have no
I'd
one.
like to ask you a question.
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, I've got no hand to put up. But anyway,
right.
Back on page 13, could I just ask Richard Bennett, does the council employ its own clerk of works to check on the progress and the quality of works that's been carried out? That's one thing. Also, the work stopping for the Severn Trent improvements on the water, and also the unexpected issues. Who's paying for that? It's not. Is that Fitzgerald's paying for that, or have the council got to pay for that?
Thank you, Councillor Campbell, and through you, Chair. So the council has employed a contractor to do the clerk of works responsibilities on behalf of the council, because the council doesn't have its own clerk of works, and that's a company called Turner and Townsend that are providing that service for us on our behalf. In terms of the delays caused by the Severn Trent works and the unexpected utility issues and drain issues underneath Devonshire Lane and Devonshire Square, the project does have a contingency sum within it, and that is in effect that those issues are called a compensation event, so that exploits the contingency sum that's part of the overall budget.
Yeah, thanks for that. Just ask one more question. The new path that's been put in down by Own Bargains seems rather steep to me, and I just wondered if it's been laid correctly, because you're going to get some freezing weather on there in the winter and people are going to start falling over. I just wondered if it's okay.
Through you, Chair, the levels have been designed to the full access and mobility standards stipulated by the County Highway Authority, and are the technical details approved under the Section 278 legal agreement with the Highway Authority. The works have been implemented by the contractor and have been inspected by the clerk of works. So I'll be very surprised if they hadn't been implemented correctly.
Thank you for that. I hope you're right.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bradshaw, you want to come back?
Yes, thank you. I've just gone through my notes. Yeah, it's just in relation to what Councillor Baldwin said earlier on, and just wanted some clarification or even an answer, please. A few weeks back, with certain monies that weren't being spent, so for example, the Thorpe Acre, which we're now led to believe has gone, we got together with Verity Graham about certain projects that were going on, and we have, you know, my question is, what was the point of actually having that meeting, putting forward projects that myself, Councillor Baldwin, Councillor Campsall and Councillor Hunt were involved in? And I would appreciate if we could get some answer on that, please, whether it be tonight or by email. We are waiting for an answer. Thank you.
Through you, Councillor Hamilton, I will follow that up, Councillor Bradshaw. I am aware that meeting took place, but that meeting was not in relation to the Loughborough special rate. It was in relation to Loughborough University monies. Verity's on leave this week, but I will follow up with her regarding that. Okay,
thank you, Julie.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further questions? Electronic hand or a fleshy wavy hand? Nope. If there's no further questions, I believe we've been asked to note this report. So I presume we don't vote on it. Is that correct, Karen? We just note on it?
Yeah, it's a case of everyone noting the report. It's for information only.
Yes.
And now you can suitably close the meeting.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think that's been a good session. Lots of questions were asked. So thanks everyone for attending. Thank you.